Storyteller & Co. presents Perfection.
No one would have believed that in the last years of the 21st century, this world was being watched, and that as we evolved, we were studied almost as narrowly as we studied our own origins. The past fascinated us in a way no one was able to define. We used it to shape our progress, our societies, our lives, our legacies.
With infinite complacency, our people continue to evolve, serene in their assurance that they would one day reach their idea of perfection. Our past did not teach us to be fair, or to be equals, or to be peaceful. It only showed us that we had come far but had yet to find our optimum potential.
No one gave a thought to what could be beyond our sky or below our ground, or that somewhere there was a danger more pressing than each other. At most, we feared that perfection would require sacrifices we were not willing or ready to make. But for a new obstacle to emerge? Unthinkable.
Yet across the gulf of space, intellects vast and cool and unsympathetic regarded this world as troublesome. For when the first seeds of life were planted amongst the rocks and the oceans of our world, they had already become transcendent. Though we were far from being a threat, these intellects saw what we could not: potential.
And then, early in the 22nd century, came the messengers. Palm-sized silver seeds fell and buried themselves deep within our world, connecting their roots deep into our core. Fascination once again spread through every city on every continent as truces were put in place to study these strange objects. It took months for the seeds to sprout, and years for them to flower. Our people waited patiently for them to show their nature.
Each bud held a recording that played in loops. It showed us our slow evolution from tiny organisms living within the soil to our ascension into our current forms. But our past was not all they did show. Our future evolutions, the road to perfection, and what would be necessary to support us when that day came. The most intelligent in the cities began to work together to find a way to speed up the process. No one questioned why we were being shown our path. No one thought to ask who sent this information to us.
Yet, so vain are we, blinded by our obsession to be sublime, that we forgot to reach for it. Truces crumbled quickly as we all wanted to be the first. Perfection became a secondary goal as we worked tirelessly to wipe each other out, not paying attention to the space beyond our skies or the changes stirring below our earth. Looking across space would have shown us that the transcendent beings were above us, waiting. We have scarcely dreamed of venturing to other worlds, despite knowing that there is more out there. What is it that they saw in our stalked eyes that threatened them so? And we, the creatures who inhabit this world, with our potential, only use it upon ourselves. To carry warfare sunward was beyond us, and so we continued our battles below the clouds, once again ignorant to the dangers above. Our strange flowers forever looping through a bright future that was no longer possible. Looking down upon us, the transcendent beings smiled at our folly. Before we judge of them too harshly, we must remember that this fighting was who we have always been. We have swept across each continent over and over through our history, never learning to be peaceful. They added a catalyst to expedite the inevitable, nothing more. Was it from pure greed that they did not wish us to become like them?
We saw an increase in the activity of the messengers, still feeding off of our planet's core. Peculiar markings, as yet unexplained, were seen appearing and glowing along the stems of each site during the coming years. Yet there was nothing of this in the news, only that the images were becoming clearer the longer they ran, and the world continued to fight, oblivious to one of the gravest dangers that ever threatened it. Until the skies began to open up and showed us the truest form of perfection. Millions of observers saw the red and purple hues of the gaseous beings swimming across our skies. For the first time in our history, we were lost, unsure, as our soldiers stopped their fighting. All across our world, we stared above us, questioning our existence and what was beyond our skies.
They stayed above us, not saying or doing anything more than showing us that they were watching. The following night brought with it the rumbling. Now we questioned what was below us, evolving to threaten us. The roots sped up the process of long since inert organisms living inside of the core of our world. Panic spread.
When the process of the messengers was finished, they withered, leaving only a silvery sludge where they had once stood. It seemed that they carried more than the message for us. Our obsession with perfection was forgotten in those days as we tried to survive. When the process of the messengers was finished, they withered, leaving only a silvery sludge where they had once stood. It seemed that they carried more than the message for us. Our obsession with perfection was forgotten in those days as we tried to survive.
Though they were transcendent, our unwanted visitors were not all-knowing. Perhaps at one time they had been the most intelligent, but their evolution was stalled. They no longer learned or changed. What would have worked before did not work now. Their rushed evolutionary beasts began to die painfully at our feet. Without time, their adaptations were unstable. We soon became the dominant beings on our world once again.
And now, from this chapter of our history, comes the strange and gruesome part. I remember, clearly and coldly and vividly, the sound of gasping and creaking. From the skies fell those that had been transcendent. Their perfection was no longer so, as our poisonous air turned them solid. A long since shed skeleton forming within the red and purple gaseous shapes. Organs, skin, eyes, teeth, everything that belonged in a solid form was taking shape and falling from the sky. We saw them for what they had once been. No one helped them as they gasped and writhed at our feet amongst the bodies of their failures.